Hi everybody. I wanted to make a video today about preserving green onions because my attempt at growing onions seems to have failed. They're not bulbing up, they're starting to fall over. So I thought that this might happen. I was given some small onions, like onion sets to plant instead of onion starts, as well as I used some compost that I thought was questionable, not if it had many nutrients in it. It had gotten really hot. And so apparently it didn't do great as far as growing onions, but I have a lot of green onions. So typically when I freeze chives, which I look at them as very similar, I cut them, lay them out on a cookie sheet and freeze them, and then put them in a container in the freezer. That way they're in individual pieces. But I've heard that you can just throw them in a container, green onions anyway, freeze them, and they will not be clumped up. So we're gonna do both methods today and see which one works better. Hey guys, I decided to bring you out here to the garden as I harvest some of these onions as green onions. Wasn't sure exactly how this would work. You're currently hanging from my tomato trellis. But anyway, we're gonna pull these, rinse them off in the garden hose, and then take them inside. Now that I have a pile of green onions here, which is only about a third of what is out in the garden, I've got a cutting board, sharp knife. This is going to be for the parts I don't use, the compost. I have a parchment paper lined cookie sheet. This is not a full big sheet because it won't fit in the top of my freezer that's up in the main part of the house. And then a wide mouth jar that I'm going to just put some in to see if I can just freeze them like this. I have found they do better in a container of some sort versus a bag. So once they're cleaned, there's going to be some like pieces to take off. If you don't like the white part for whatever reason, or the green part for whatever reason, you certainly don't have to use those. I'm just going to trim these up a little bit. I've given my onions a haircut a few times, so they are looking nice. There's not dead on them or anything like that. And I'm just going to slice them like I would if I was using them in a recipe. Now, to be honest, I don't know how much I will use these. A lot of recipes that I have that call for green onions, I often omit them because my husband is not wild about eating onions, though they are cooked in most dishes that he eats and loves. And I also substitute chives for green onions often, but I don't want these to go to waste. If I don't use them in a recipe, I will definitely use them instead of onions when making bone broth. So I will get through this pile of onions and then we will come back. So I got most of them chopped up. I have a few left here that I may just bag and freeze, but I filled up a quart mason jar that I'm going to put the lid in and throw this in the freezer. And then I've spread these out. This is thicker than I probably should have done it. I usually try to do a real thin layer, but we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna pop these both in the freezer and see which one I feel is best as far as breaking up for ease of use, because nobody's going to use a whole jar. Well, maybe somebody will. You could also do this with any leftover green onions that you bought from the store. You don't have to be using up a bunch like I am right now. So I'll get these in the freezer and we'll see what happens. The green onions on the tray are frozen. The ones in the jar, not so much. They're clumped up and they're not fully frozen, so I will definitely be continuing to spread them out on a sheet like this to freeze them individually, and after they're frozen, put them in a jar. It'll be easier for me to take out what I want to use instead of having a big clump. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me on this new journey and your support for me. Until next time, God bless.